If you are an English learner, you know this moment instinctively. You're mid-sentence, maybe talking about your day or giving an opinion, and suddenly your brain just hits a wall. The perfect grammar might be there, in your head, but you freeze. Maybe you're trying to find some super complicated word, or you're just terrified of making a tiny mistake.
Yeah, that pause. It's killer.
It really is. It turns what could be a smooth conversation into this uh, stuttering, awkward silence. That feeling of being unsure, that hesitation, it's probably the single biggest block to confident daily communication.
And, that hesitation is exactly what we're aiming to sort of dismantle today. Our source material really makes this crystal clear. True fluency isn't actually about mastering super complex vocabulary or, obscure grammar rules.
Right.
It's achieved by mastering simple phrases, the ones you use habitually. We're really talking about building a kind of conversational rhythm, not just collecting a huge vocabulary list we
Right.
never actually use.
Welcome back to English from A to Z. Our deep dive today is totally focused on giving you a shortcut. We've taken your sources on daily English speaking practice, and we're pulling out the most critical, actionable, and frankly, immediately usable steps.
Yeah, we're not digging into academic English here, the kind you find in textbooks.
No.
We're looking for the language you actually hear, in cafes, at work, just walking down the street. The phrases that make you sound natural, confident, and approachable.
Our mission really is to help you move beyond just memorizing stuff and actually develop the habit of thinking and responding in English without that awful, crippling hesitation.
Exactly. We want to show you how native speakers use simple structures, but flexibly, right? Yep. To get clarity, confidence, and context across in real-time conversations. We're basically going straight for, let's say, the core phrases that can change how you communicate almost instantly.
Okay, let's jump right into that core idea because I think it's the biggest mental hurdle for so many learners. Section 1 here is all about redefining what fluency even means. So many people think, incorrectly, that fluency means speaking really fast or using big fancy words. But, if you walk into a busy cafe and you can't quickly say something simple like to go or check, please, then all that fancy vocabulary isn't really helping you in that moment, is it?
Not at all. The core insight, and this comes through in all our sources, is that fluency is primarily about comfort level. It's about rhythm.
Right. Comfort.
It's a habit you build through repetition, not just a skill you learn by memorizing grammar tables. When linguists actually analyze everyday spoken conversation, what do they find?
Simple stuff.
Mostly, yeah. The vast majority doesn't rely on super complex sentences or rare words. People rely on common, simple phrases. These are like the fundamental building blocks of natural speech.
Okay, that's actually a huge relief for learners who feel like they have to sound like a university professor all the time.
Definitely.
But I wonder, though, are the sources saying we should just, ignore all those grammar rules we spent hours learning just for chatting every day?
No, not ignore them entirely. Think of the rules as the scaffolding, the structure underneath.
Okay.
But the habit, that's the actual doing. The sources emphasize that grammar rules are fantastic for writing, sure. But for speaking, your brain needs ready-made chunks of language.
Ah, prepackaged.
Exactly. If you have to construct every sentence from scratch using the subject-verb-object rule every single time you open your mouth, you're always going to hesitate. But if you internalize, how's it going,
Yeah.
as one single unit?
Your response is instant, automatic.
Precisely.
That makes total sense. And I guess nowhere is that difference between formal rules and casual habits clearer than in greetings and small talk, that first impression you make.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Think about that classic formal phrase.
Yeah.
The one language courses sometimes still push. Hello, how do you do?
Sounds so stiff.
It does. If you use that walking down the street or, even with a colleague you see every day, it sounds really formal, almost like you're reading from an old play. The natural everyday options are things like, hey, how's it going? Or maybe, Hi, what's up? Much more common.
And the response is just as important, isn't it? If someone asks, how's it going?
Yeah.
The absolute worst reply is just a clipped one word, fine.
Oh, definitely. It just kills the conversation dead.
Yeah.
The fluent response is always a bit more expansive, even if it's just slightly longer. If you're actually doing well, you pair it with thanks and return the question. It's going great, thanks. How about you?
Okay.
Or maybe if you're just having an okay day, you add a little detail. Not too bad, just a bit busy today. The key thing is you show that conversational give and take. Reciprocity.
So essentially, we're training our brains to give like a three-part response automatically.
Hmm.
Acknowledge, add a little texture, and then pivot back. Like, say, walking past a coworker in the hallway.
Exactly right. If
Yeah.
the coworker says, hey, what's up? You could respond, not much, just wrapping up this report. Talk later. See? That quick model greeting, tiny update, closing signal that's fluent small talk. Simple, friendly, and perfectly professional in a casual setting.
Okay, moving on from greetings. Let's talk about asking for information. This happens all the time. Maybe you're lost, or you're in a store, or trying to find something at work. The sources highlight one phrase that seems incredibly flexible and useful. Do you happen to know?
Yes, this is a real power phrase.
Right.
And it's powerful because of the psychology behind it. It's gentle, it's clear, and it's something fluent speakers use all the time to ask for help or info.
So, why is it better than just a direct question? Like, instead of, where are the batteries?
Well, it subtly lowers the social pressure on the person you're asking.
Yeah.
Instead of just demanding, where are the batteries? Which kind of implies they must know the answer.
Right, puts them on the spot.
Exactly. You ask, hey, do you happen to know where I can find some batteries? It frames it more like, maybe you know, maybe you don't, but could you possibly help?
That's really interesting. It feels more like a shared search for information rather than a demand. It gives them an out if they don't know without making it awkward.
Precisely. So in a shop, you'd use it with, excuse me, do you happen to know if you have this shirt in blue?
Mm-hmm.
In the office, asking a colleague, do you happen to know who's managing the Q3 budget report now? It's a really crucial softener. It mixes politeness with getting your question across clearly.
And you can still combine it with classic polite phrasing too, right? Which just reinforces that nice tone. Say, if you're asking for directions on the street.
Absolutely. Excuse me, I'm trying to find the main library. Could you please tell me where the nearest bus stop is?
Hmm.
Or maybe, excuse me, do you happen to know how I can get to the train station from here?
Yeah.
The sources even suggest a simple practice scenario. Imagine you're in a big hardware store looking for a really specific kind of screw. You go up to an employee,
Okay.
practicing the whole exchange out loud. Hi, excuse me, hope you can help. Do you happen to know if the metric screws are in aisle 4 or are they maybe somewhere else? Doing that makes the sentence structure feel automatic. You're practicing the context, not just memorizing words.
Okay, right. Let's tackle a situation that can feel pretty high pressure, ordering food and drinks, especially when you're at a busy counter, maybe during the lunch rush. Hesitation just isn't really an option. You need those ordering phrases like muscle memory.
Totally. The absolute essential automatic structures here are I'll have the or can I get, and the slightly more polite version, could I please get.
Okay.
These are pretty much the standard ways to order without sounding hesitant or too demanding. Learners sometimes default to saying, I want,
Hmm.
which is very direct, but it can come across as a bit blunt in many English-speaking contexts.
Yeah, I want can sound a bit demanding, and the sources really stress the tone. You absolutely should add please for respect, but the overall phrase needs to be quick and easy. I think I notice a subtle difference in usage too. Like, can I get feels maybe a bit faster, more transactional, often used for quick takeaway orders.
That's a really sharp
Mhm.
observation,
Yeah.
yes. Can I get a large black coffee to go? That's default coffee shop language,
Yeah.
right?
Hey.
I'll have the turkey club and a side salad, please. Sounds pretty standard for a quick lunch order. If you're at a proper sit-down restaurant, maybe, could I please get? It feels a bit better because it matches that slightly more formal environment.
What if the learner has a more complex order? Like they need to modify something.
Ah, that's where you train your brain to use those little prepositional phrases fluently. So instead of hesitating or getting flustered, you just chain the request together smoothly.
How so?
Like, can I get a medium latte, please? Pause. And could you make that with soy milk? Maybe just one sugar.
Yeah.
You're linking three small, easy phrases. The practice here is key. Maybe you run through 5 different imaginary cafe orders out loud before you even leave the house. Get it into your system.
Okay, so once we've got those sort of transactional phrases, down the greetings, asking for things, ordering food, we can move into the area of, well, social connection. How do you actually express who you are and how you feel without sounding like, a textbook?
Right. We definitely need to move beyond just the basic, I like it or I don't like it. Fluent social chat needs more texture, more flexibility. Think about talking about hobbies or interests. Instead of just saying, I like this TV show, a more natural alternative is something like, I'm really into this show.
Okay, I'm really into.
Or when you dislike something, instead of a flat, I don't like spicy food, you could say, I'm not a big fan of spicy food.
Let's break that down. Why is I'm not a big fan so much better? I guess it avoids sounding so final, right? Like I don't like it can feel a bit absolute.
Exactly that. I don't like it can sound quite blunt, maybe even a little aggressive, depending on the tone. I'm not a big fan. It's what we call a softening phrase. It clearly states your preference, but doesn't draw such a hard line. That's important for social situations, for compromise.
Yeah, it suggests I'd rather not, but maybe I could handle it if I had to.
Precisely. Other really good phrases are things like, that's not really my thing, or maybe I'd rather do something else. This kind of nuance shows a certain social maturity in your language use.
And to make opinions sound more genuine, more spontaneous, the sources suggest adding these little softening or qualifying phrases right before you state the opinion.
Yes, exactly. Phrases like, honestly, I think, or to be perfectly honest, these add a layer of authenticity. If a friend asks what you thought of a new restaurant, you don't just say, it was bad.
Right.
You frame it. To be honest, I thought the service was a little slow, but the pasta was actually really good. You're using that fluent conversational scaffolding around your actual point.
Okay, that makes sense. And that leads us right into making plans and socializing. Building relationships in English really requires fluency in how you start those interactions and how you follow up.
Definitely. The goal here is to be able to fluently start, accept, or maybe decline social plans. Some really useful phrases for starting things off, which, again, need practice until they're automatic, include, are you free this weekend? Or maybe more casually, do you want to grab coffee later?
Want to grab coffee? Very common.
Very. Or if the invitation is more general, not for a specific time, you use that friendly, slightly vague language. Let's catch up sometime soon. Or we should hang out again.
That use of sometime is really key there, isn't it? It signals you want to, but it doesn't demand an immediate yes or no or a specific date right then. Keeps it friendly, low pressure.
It's the ultimate social lubricant, really. And when you accept an invitation, you use flexible phrases like, that sounds good, or yeah, I'd love to. If you genuinely need to check first, you say, let me just check my schedule and I'll get back to you. Which sounds much better, much more proactive than just saying, maybe.
Right, maybe can sound a bit non-committal. Okay, now let's tackle something that trips up a lot of learners. Filler phrases. They often seem unprofessional or like a sign you can't speak well, but our sources are saying they're actually essential for flow.
Oh, they're absolutely essential. The power of hesitation, managed hesitation, lies in managing your own thinking time, your cognitive load. When you're thinking, your mouth shouldn't just clamp shut.
Yeah, that long dead silence is awkward.
It totally disrupts the rhythm of the conversation, and it signals, a lack of confidence. Filler phrases, or what linguists often call discourse markers, they're like the verbal equivalent of buying yourself a second to think.
So are we making a distinction here between just random pause fillers, the ums and uhs, and more strategic discourse markers that actually help guide the conversation, like, or actually, or well?
That's precisely the distinction. Strategic markers like, well, actually, so basically, let me think, they smooth out the transitions in speech and they manage the listener's expectations. If someone asks you a tricky question, instead of just a flat, I don't know,
Which sounds quite
Yep.
abrupt.
Right, you say, well, I'm not entirely sure off the top of my head, but maybe we can look at it this way. You've already bought yourself 2 seconds, you sound engaged, and you've softened the, I don't know.
Let's take an example, maybe explaining a complicated process to a new team member at work.
Okay, you probably lead with a marker. So basically, the first step involves, or actually the process is a bit different from what the old manual says. These little words signal to the listener how the information is structured, and they make your explanation feel more coherent, more natural.
The sources even suggest an exercise. Try narrating a challenging mental task, like solving a puzzle, using only English fillers and markers to train your brain to use them without thinking.
It's a great exercise. It
Yeah.
forces your brain to keep the verbal channel open even when the main content isn't quite ready yet. It builds that automaticity. I love the simple example of someone just asking your favorite food.
Okay.
You need a second to think. You don't just stay silent. You say, let me think. I guess I'd probably say sushi, but, only the salmon rolls, really. That, let me think. And the little, at the end, totally natural. The listener gets that you're processing, not just struggling for words.
Okay, finally, in this section, let's cover handling emotions and immediate reactions. These are so important for building that vital social connection, that rapport.
Yeah, this is critical for connecting with people on an emotional level. We need those quick, almost instinctive phrases for shock or surprise. No way, are you serious? Or maybe the slightly longer, you've got to be kidding me.
Mm-hmm. And for positive emotions, happiness, enthusiasm.
That's awesome. Yeah, I just made my day. Or showing happiness for someone else. Wow, I'm so happy for you.
And really importantly, how to respond appropriately to bad news or someone else's frustration.
You need phrases that show instant sympathy without needing a whole long speech. Things like, oh no, that's terrible, or maybe, ooh, that sounds really annoying, or a simple, heartfelt, I'm so sorry to hear that.
Okay.
The key is the immediate reaction paired with maybe a quick follow-up question or comment. So if a friend tells you they lost their wallet,
Yeah.
you react instantly. Oh no, that's so frustrating. Have you already called the bank? You've shown empathy and engagement in just a few seconds.
All right, let's shift gears a bit now, focusing on more structured, practical settings. Think work, school, or those necessary errands like going to the bank or the doctor. In these places, clarity and politeness have to combine with the sort of immediate language needed for that specific context.
Absolutely. If you find yourself in a meeting or maybe a classroom discussion, you really need the right tools to add your thoughts gracefully and, manage the flow of conversation. The sources suggest specific phrases for polite interruption or contribution.
Like what?
Things like, I'd like to add something here, if I may. Or perhaps slightly more informal, if I could just jump in for a second.
That, if I may, that sounds really professional, doesn't it? It's polite, but it also signals you have something important you want to contribute.
It does. Now, what about when someone else is talking, maybe explaining something complex, and you need to make sure you've understood before the conversation moves on?
Yeah, that's a common scenario.
You have to intervene, but politely. You could use phrases like, just to clarify, are you saying that? Or maybe, so if I'm understanding correctly, the main point is X. These structures show you are listening actively, you're processing it, and you're aiming for mutual understanding. That's a real hallmark of professional fluency.
Okay. And what if the complexity is just overwhelming? how do you ask for clarification without sounding nervous, or worse, like you weren't paying attention at all?
You fall back on clear diplomatic phrasing. A really universal one is, could you possibly explain that again? I just want to make sure I fully grasp the last part.
That sounds good.
Or if the issue is maybe volume or speed, sorry, I didn't quite catch that last bit. Could you go over the instructions once more, please? These are very common, very professional ways to signal you need repetition. You're basically normalizing the act of asking for help.
One of the most effective practice strategies the sources mention for building this kind of automaticity is simply talking about your daily routine. Because the script is entirely based on your actual life, it requires zero imagination.
It's brilliant because it's a self-contained, high-frequency practice loop. If someone asks, so what's your usual day like? You respond using simple verbs, a clear chronological structure, and those phrases of time and frequency we'll talk more about later.
Well, I usually get up around 7,
Have some coffee right away.
and then I normally head to work by about 8:30. Simple, real, repeatable.
And this practice has to be done out loud, doesn't it? Even if you're alone. Like
Yeah.
literally narrating your life in English as you do things.
Yes. The source material really hammers this idea of self-talk. Okay, I'm just heating up some water for tea now, or right, need to grab my keys before I head out. This constant, simple narration starts to eliminate that translation step between your thought and your speech, especially for those really common verbs and actions.
Okay, now let's drill down into some specific high-stakes transactional language.
Yeah.
Managing appointments, banking, customer service calls. These are contexts where miscommunication could actually have real consequences. Definitely. Let's start with, say, the doctor's office or clinic. The language there really focuses on reporting symptoms clearly and making specific requests. You need to be able to differentiate between something sudden, acute, and something ongoing, chronic. So
Yeah.
for something acute, I've been running a fever since yesterday morning, or I think I twisted my ankle playing basketball. For requests, I'd like to make an appointment to see Dr. Evans, please. Or, do you happen to know if I need a referral for a specialist?
Okay. Now, shifting to the bank. That requires pretty precise financial language.
Yes, precision is key. Essential banking phrases would include things like, I'd like to open a new checking account, please. Or maybe more urgently, I need to report a lost debit card right away
Okay.
for managing money. Could you help me transfer some money to my savings account? Or, I'm calling because I think there might be a discrepancy on my statement. The confidence here comes from using those specific, simple nouns, checking, savings, transfer, balance, discrepancy, within a fixed, practiced sentence structure.
And finally, the dreaded customer service call. This can be the trickiest because you often don't have any visual cues to rely on.
Right. You have to establish your purpose and the nature of the problem very clearly and right at the beginning. Hi, I'm calling about my internet connection. It seems to have been down for about 2 hours now.
Clear and direct.
Or, if it's a billing issue. Hi there. I've noticed a charge on my latest bill that I don't recognize, and I need some help understanding it. Then you also need phrases ready for maybe escalating the issue, like, could I please speak to a manager or a supervisor?
That level of specific phrasing is exactly what learners need. Okay, what about managing those completely unexpected or awkward moments, when the conversation goes totally off script?
Ah, yes, the little daily bumps. Native speakers have these automatic, usually quite informal crisis management phrases locked and loaded. If you accidentally bump into someone on a crowded train,
Yeah.
the standard response is usually something like, oh, sorry, or oops, excuse me, followed quickly by, no worries, or sometimes, my bad, it's all good.
Notice how different that is from a really formal apology, like, I sincerely apologize for the inconvenience I may have caused.
Worlds apart. Casual crisis situations call for casual language. If you arrive a few minutes late for a casual meeting or catching up with a friend, you offer a brief, non-defensive reason. So sorry I'm late. The traffic was absolutely crazy this morning.
Mm-hmm.
And when someone apologizes to you for something minor, you immediately reassure them with something like, oh, don't worry about it. It happens. Or no problem at all. Or it's totally fine. These phrases are crucial for maintaining social harmony and just keeping things moving smoothly.
Okay, now we're moving into what feel like slightly more advanced techniques. The things that separate someone who can speak English effectively from someone who is an engaging English conversationalist. Section 4 is all about keeping the flow going and avoiding that really common pitfall for learners,
Yeah.
the Q&A trap.
Ah, the Q&A trap. Yeah, that's when the conversation just feels like a really tedious interview, right?
Yeah.
Because the learner only gives these short, direct answers to every question.
Yeah. Exactly. Like question, answer, silence. Question, answer, silence.
The key to breaking out of that pattern is really adopting the natural conversational style of a native speaker, which means giving slightly extended, more detailed answers and almost always asking a return question.
Let's walk through a clear example from the sources. If someone asks you, how was your weekend? What's the fluent, engaging response versus the Q&A trap response?
Okay, the trap response is just, it was good. Silence.
Right. End of conversation.
Exactly. The fluent engaging response delivers maybe three parts.
Oh, it was great. Thanks for asking. I actually went hiking with some friends on Saturday, which was really nice and relaxing. How about your weekend? Did you get up to anything fun?
See, that third part, the return question, that's the absolute defining characteristic of a fluent conversationalist, isn't it? It forces the conversation to continue. It shows you're interested. You're communicating with them, not just answering at them.
Absolutely. And this needs to be practiced consciously across all sorts of topics. If a colleague asks, how's that new project coming along? Instead of just, fine.
Right. You reply, it's actually moving along pretty well. We had a small technical issue yesterday, but we managed to sort it out this morning. Should be back on track for the Friday deadline. How's your team finding the new software? Always pivot back.
Okay, another tool that the sources highlight as brilliant for maintaining flow, especially when your brain just short circuits on a specific word, is paraphrasing. Saying the same idea but in a different way.
Yes. This is such a massive confidence booster because it frees you from feeling like you have to find that one perfect word. If you forget the specific noun, say umbrella, you don't just freeze up.
You describe it.
Yeah, you switch to describing it. You know that thing you use to stay dry when it's raining? If you blank on the word scissors, you say, could you pass me that tool for cutting paper?
And doing that actually forces you to be flexible with your grammar and vocabulary at the same time, doesn't it? You're exercising your ability to use different parts of speech nouns, verbs, adjectives, clauses, all to get one single concept across.
Totally. It makes your language muscles much more flexible. The practice tip here is really effective. Try defining simple common objects, like maybe a refrigerator or a stapler out loud, without using their actual names.
Hmm.
It forces your brain to get creative and use descriptive language as a core skill for fluency, not just a backup plan.
That's a great exercise. Okay, next up, adding nuance by using richer expressions of time and frequency. Fluent speakers rarely just stick to the very blunt, always or never.
Right. We need to bring in those softer, more textured expressions that reflect how life actually works. Things like every now and then, once in a while, usually pretty often, or from time to time.
Hmm.
These add rhythm and detail.
So, for instance, if someone asks how often you go to the gym,
Instead of just saying sometimes, you might say, well, I usually try to go 3 times a week, but sometimes I only make it once in a while if things get busy.
oh,
Or
wow.
instead of I never eat fast foods, maybe I only grab fast food once in a blue moon, really. These varied expressions just make your speech sound less robotic, more natural, more human.
And in both social and professional settings, the way we agree and disagree politely is absolutely crucial. You need to be able to confirm agreement quickly and clearly, but disagree respectfully, making sure you don't damage the connection.
Exactly. For straightforward agreement, Use sharp, simple, confirming phrases.
Wait.
Exactly. That's spot on. Or the really strong one.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay.
When you disagree, however, the goal is always to keep the tone positive and collaborative. You absolutely must introduce your different viewpoint gently, using some kind of diplomatic cushion.
What are some of the best cushioning phrases for that?
Phrases like, I see what you mean, but I tend to think, or that's a really good point, but have you perhaps considered this angle? Even better sometimes is a more conversational phrase like, okay, that's fair enough, but I might look at it slightly differently because this shows you've heard and acknowledged their perspective before you offer your own. This isn't just about choosing the right words, it's about demonstrating high-level social awareness through your language.
So, if a coworker suggests rescheduling a meeting to a time that really doesn't work for you, how would you handle that smoothly using this approach?
Okay, so you might respond with something like, I get why Friday afternoon might seem good and I appreciate you suggesting it, but honestly, 4:00 p.m. on a Friday might be a bit tight with my deadlines.
Right.
Would Monday morning possibly work better for everyone?
Ah, so you acknowledge, you soften the no, and then you immediately offer a constructive alternative. Maintains the flow and the collaboration.
Exactly. It keeps things moving forward positively.
Okay, finally, let's tackle one of the most common reasons for awkward silences. Just not knowing how to end a conversation smoothly.
Yes, the awkward exit. You need clear exit signals. They should be polite, they should sound confident, and they need to be proactive. You initiate the closing. The sources give some great standard exit phrases for different situations. If you genuinely need to rush off to another commitment, you use a clear, firm closing line. All right, everyone, I've actually got to run to another meeting now. Or, look, I should probably get going, but it was really nice chatting with you.
Okay, polite but definite. And what about a more casual chat with a friend where you fully expect to talk again very soon?
Then you use phrases that clearly signal that future communication. Okay, cool. Let's catch up properly soon. Or, great talking to you. I'll shoot you a text later. Or simply, talk to you next week. These are short, they're effective, and they make sure you leave the interaction on a positive note, removing any weirdness about just stopping abruptly. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow, we certainly covered a lot of ground today. But I think the core takeaway, the thing we really need to internalize, remains incredibly clear. We have to recalibrate how we think about fluency.
Mhm.
It's really about confidence, it's about rhythm, and it's about using the right small phrase, the right ingrained habit in the right situation.
Absolutely. And we saw the incredible power of those flexible everyday phrases, didn't we? Things like, that sounds good for agreeing, or let me know for managing future plans, or just a simple no problem when someone thanks you. These short, high-frequency bursts of language, those are the true measure of confident automatic speech.
And the sources were so emphatic about the need for consistent daily practice. You really have to speak out loud every single day. Narrating your routine, like we talked about, using those simple structures we drilled, that's what trains your brain to go straight from thought into English speech, skipping that painful translation step.
That daily commitment is what builds the automatic habit. And remember, the goal isn't necessarily to speak super fast. It's to speak clearly, confidently, and, well, often.
You know, perhaps the most liberating insight from all the sources we looked at today was that simple fact. Fluent speakers make mistakes too. Perfection is just an impossible standard, even for people who've spoken English their whole lives.
It really is.
So, knowing that, let's leave you with this final, maybe provocative thought. If perfection is impossible, and if fear is really the main barrier, what's the single biggest fear that's holding your fluency back right now? Think about it honestly.
Yeah.
And then what's the one simple everyday phrase we talked about today? Maybe it's a simple, do you happen to know? Or
Yeah.
perhaps that sounds good. Or even just practicing saying, no worries. What's the one phrase you can commit to using consciously every day this week to start overcoming that specific fear?
Just take that one simple, actionable step. Remember, consistency, not trying to learn everything at once, is the only real path to building that true, lasting conversational confidence. Keep practicing, keep speaking out loud, and keep building that rhythm.